5,000-year-old map of the world ED reveals a terrifying secret from the Y of an ancient map that could disprove the dating of the Y of an entire continent to the unearthing of an ancient egg that seemed to predict the future or change the dating of one of the most ancient and recognizable structures known to man. Here is how the Y of a 5,000-year-old map revealed a terrifying secret. For some time now, we have been more or less certain about the course of history that humans have experienced over many millennia. From perhaps as far back as 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, we have a decent grasp of what our ancestors were up to, whether it was people like Alexander the Great who seemed to be invincible as he conquered much of the known world back then, to perhaps the industrial age where one could say man experienced the spark that ignited the technological age that we find ourselves in today. We have been able to maintain a decent chronicle of what happened back then. However, we'd find that findings have brought about cause to challenge some of the well-established historical narratives that were taken to be fact. Supposedly, these findings have created a situation where we may have to accept that these ancient civilizations had far more advanced knowledge that could even rival that of ours today. These IES go ahead to suggest that the historical timeline of human civilization may actually have to undergo some extensive revision, as they serve as proof that some of the information that we have accepted as fact today may prove to be blips in the records of time. One of these IES happens to be this ancient map that was ED recently. According to the archaeologists that got to take a look at it, they came to believe that this map that was ED in Egypt was approximately 5,000 years old. Unbelievable. Can you imagine having such a map in your possession? While it is amazing enough to get a look at what the world looked like to our ancestors who had finally set their eyes on their home planet, it is also fascinating to get proof of how advanced our ancestors were when it came to their level of knowledge and capabilities. At the very least, we can get a look at how advanced the ancient Egyptians were back in the day, as this map has been attributed to be their handiwork. When one then takes a look at the contents of the map, they are likely to get even more fascinated with the map because they would realize that the map actually depicted the continent of America. Hold on? How the heck is that possible? We all attended that history class. Didn't they say that Christopher Columbus ed the Americas in 1492? If that is the case, why is there a 5,000-year-old ancient Egyptian map that has the image of the Americas on it? Oh, my 7th grade history teacher Ms Beaker has a lot of explaining to do. Until then, it's clear that a lot of work has to go into taking a look at the historical timelines and the global interconnectedness of ancient times. Clearly something is up. This map clearly shows that not only did the ancient Egyptians have a firm grasp of the other continents such as Africa, Asia, and Europe, they also knew what the Americas may have looked like and where it was. That makes the map fairly accurate, and the notion that the world was fairly unaware of the existence of the Americas in ancient times up until the 15th century may be false. According to the reports, this map was ed in an ancient Egyptian city known as Nen. Apparently, it was known to be a center that held a lot of significance to the religious and political scene for the Egyptians living in Upper Egypt. With this in mind, it may be fair to assume that this was a place where scholars, traders, and explorers exchanged their goods and ideas. Goods such as the 5,000-year-old map that has left the world in shock today. With that, it may also be fair to say that this city may have also been a center for geographical knowledge and exploration. When we talk about exploration in this context, you can't really blame anyone for coming to the conclusion that the existence of this 5,000-year-old map with the image of America on it suggests that exploration to the continent of America must have occurred long before we had been told it happened. With this in mind, you cannot be blamed for thinking that if these ancient peoples actually made this journey across the oceans with whatever techniques and technologies that they had at their disposal, then not only will this redefine our knowledge and understanding of technological and navigational skills, it will also indicate that there was a much higher level of interconnectedness going on far beyond what was previously believed. At the very least, when one looks at the map, they may feel that some of these ancient ancestors must have found their way across the Atlantic Ocean before coming across the natives that called the continent home long before the times we believed it happened. As such, it should come across as no surprise when we find that such interactions may involve trade and interactions that saw the exchange of not only goods and services but also knowledge and practice as well. With this being stated, we can now address the elephant in the room, as it suggests that the existence of the map thwarts the Eurocentric notion that Christopher Columbus was the one who ed the Americas. With this as Exhibit A, one can actually put it to the authorities to enforce a change in the pages of history, especially when it comes to the accounts and contributions of non-European civilizations. This would force the historians to also delve into the possibility of the existence of earlier trade networks, cultural exchanges, and maybe even technological and scientific endeavors that spanned several continents. That would be amazing, as it would prove that the world was not as large as we thought it was, at least not to our ancestors. As profound as the recently edited 5,000-year-old map is, you cannot be too surprised to hear that many have questioned the authenticity of the map. After all, the process of dating artifacts accurately is a complex process that has its own fair share of problems. Just take a look at the carbon dating process that many scientists, archaeologists, and researchers frequently rely on. While it is a useful method to use when you want to determine how old something is, it is known to have its fair share of faults and, as such, it is not always reliable. For example, it has already been accepted that carbon dating isn't ideal for relics such as stone maps or items that are too contaminated or degraded. As bad as it is that there are reasonable doubts as to the age of the artifact, there are still other reasons that may cast some more doubt as to how reliable such a map is. One of the other doubts that come to mind is when it comes to the interpretation of the features of the map. Apparently, there are those who question the fact that the map is really accurately representing the Americas. These skeptics claim that the similarities in the current features of the continent of America and that which is found on this 5,000 map could either be coincidental or misinterpreted. However, this still doesn't put the matter to the sword, as there are many who claim that this 5,000-year-old map really does have an accurate representation of America on it. Despite what the critics might want to say, there is no way you can convince any coherent observer that this map does not have the ability to rewrite the pages of human history. At the very least, we are going to need a bit of a rethink as we attempt to ascertain whether or not these ancient civilizations were far more advanced in exploration and navigation than we may have thought. With that, not only does this promote a revision of the historical timelines, it also highlights the need for a more inclusive understanding of global history. This would allow for the recognition of all civilizations. With this, you can see how a deep study of this may lead into some much-needed insights into some of the hidden pages of history, and with that, one can see how the future may be changed by what we learned from the past. As fascinating as this 5,000-year-old map must have been, it could be said to pale in comparison when it is staged next to the Nubian egg that was edited next to it. Just look at this beauty. Apparently, those lucky enough to find themselves around this massive Nubian egg would find that its existence poses a challenge to the already established timeline of history. Why, you may ask? Well, apparently, the Nubian egg is said to be an ancient ostrich egg that is believed to be about 7,000 years old. That is even older than our 5,000-year-old Egyptian map. As fascinating as the age of this Nubian egg may be, one would find that the markings that can be found on it are equally interesting, if not even more. When you take a peek at it, one will see that these markings come in the form of 3 triangles with horizontal lines etched across them, as well as what appears to be the depiction of a snake among several other captivating images. Understandably, interpreting these markings has been debated intensely by the scholars and the historians that we find among ourselves. Over time, one of the more accepted interpretations of these markings asserted that these markings represented the Pyramid of Giza, i.e., the Pyramid of Menari, the Pyramid of Khafre, and the Great Pyramid of Khufu, while the snake represented the Nile River. As fascinating as these interpretations may be, one is forced to ponder deeply as they come to terms with what this means. Over time, we have come to terms with the fact that this Nubian egg, which was edited in the Nubian region of southern Egypt, makes us realize that it contradicts much of what has been established in history, as while this egg is 7,000 years old, it has representations of the Great Pyramids of Giza, structures that are said to be about 5,000 years old. As the historians tried to wrap their minds around this, they came up with 2 possible explanations. One was that there must have been a critical error when the Nubian egg was being dated. The other is that the Great Pyramids of Giza are even older than we ever thought they were. If the latter of these 2 options is true, then that means that the ancient Egyptians had actually developed to a level of sophistication that had the ability to carry out some rather remarkable architectural feats much earlier than we imagined. As you can imagine, this is set to change the shape of Egyptian and human history forever if it could be ascertained to be true. However, as we had hinted at earlier on, the process of dating some of these items, such as the Nubian egg, needs to be handled with care, as the process of carbon dating is not an easy or a wholly reliable method to be so persuasive. Carbon dating will struggle to trace the date of the egg because not only does it struggle to carbon date items that are many millennia old, it also struggles when such items may have succumbed to factors such as contamination, environmental effects, and methodological limitations. As much as these symbols on the egg could lead to many inaccuracies, one will also find that the interpretation of these symbols on the Nubian egg could be the problem at the end of the day, as they could prove to be subjective. Their form could actually be coincidental, or they could just be common symbols that mean different things to different people. Some of the scholars that have taken a look at the egg have even claimed that maybe the triangles on the egg, for example, were a stylized or mythical representation rather than an actual map. With that, one is forced to wonder whether there may even be some layers to the history of ancient Egypt that may limit our interpretation of these markings found on such an ancient artifact. At the very least, it reminds us that there are many civilizations whose capabilities and knowledge have been lost to us today, as they have been buried by the sands of time. With that in mind, the analysis of the Nubian egg will help promote advances in dating such items in the future, as we are set to learn from it. With that, we must be set to make some advancement in the understanding of ancient symbolism. No doubt, interdisciplinary studies which involve the works carried out by archaeologists, historians, linguistics, and other researchers would prove to be crucial when it comes to uncovering the full story as it concerns these ancient artifacts. As you can imagine, it takes little to recognize that the Nubian egg is a captivating relic that has survived the passing of time. Not only is it alluring in form, but it also seems to be an item that challenges the preconceived notions when it comes to what we believed we knew about ancient Egyptians. Now, people can engage in a deeper exploration of ancient Egypt in history, especially as it has caused a disruption in some of the established dates in human history. As a result, it suggests that ancient civilizations were more interconnected and technologically advanced than we ever thought. With that in mind, there is every hope that as research continues on the Nubian egg, it will reveal many more insights into the rich tapestry of human civilization. For now, we have seen how the dating of the ancient pyramids seems to be an important factor in this research. Believed to have been built about 4,600 years ago, we are now forced to re-evaluate such a date due to the markings found on our precious egg. Again, we are forced to wonder how these markings got on an egg that predated what they represent by 2,000 years. Did somebody just dream them up? Or could these markings actually mean something else that has been lost to us over the course of time? Right now, as we search for these answers, we are also forced to evaluate how accurate our methods of dating these things are. There is every chance that when we get the answers to these questions, our notions of time and what has been accepted as history may actually change forever. Perhaps, we should go into this dating method for a minute or two. You see, when an item goes through the process of what is known as radiocarbon dating, the researchers are using the technique of measuring the decay of carbon-14 in organic materials. Like we mentioned earlier, this technique does have its limitations, especially when it comes to using it to learn how old non-organic materials are. For example, this is why it may be difficult to date pyramids accurately. They are made of stone. All the scientists can do when it comes to dating the pyramids is date some of the organic items that are found in it. That said, we have to accept that this may not be of the best help because those pieces of wood and charcoal that are found in the pyramid may not actually date from the time of the pyramid's construction. If that is not bad enough, these researchers also have to worry about the level of contamination that is found in these organic materials, as they too have proven to be a huge factor when it comes to dating these items. With this room for error, it is clear that we may need a re-evaluation of the age of these pyramids. If we can prove that these pyramids are older than we think, then we may actually be able to open a door of many possibilities, especially when it comes to the history of the ancient Egyptians. With that, if they can prove that the Nubian egg is actually carrying markings of the pyramids on its body, then it would prove once and for all that the ancient Egyptians were capable of building these fascinating structures much earlier than we previously thought, and that is truly amazing. Ascertaining this is potentially immense because not only would the pages of the history of ancient Egypt need a rewrite, but also that which contains the details of our understanding of the development of the human race. At the very least, it would tell us that we achieved state formation and technological innovation much earlier than we thought. Understandably, as there is much room for error, there are those who have found reason to doubt the academic community when it comes to the interpretation of this ancient relic. Who could blame them? Some of them rightly claim that we should be wary about drawing direct historical conclusions from symbolic and artistic representations, as those found on the Nubian egg could prove to be misleading. Furthermore, this egg has triggered a call for a more nuanced method of dating these artifacts, one that may make use of multiple lines of evidence such as geological, climatological, and archaeological data. There is every belief that if these methods are used, one could actually put together a more accurate picture of ancient history. How invaluable could that prove to be? All of this proves that the only way to get rid of all these doubts is to put our heads down and engage in some more research. It is inevitable. As a result, we must make use of some more reliable dating methods such as thermoluminescence or optically stimulated luminescence dating. The latter is especially interesting because it is believed to be able to date stone structures. Indeed, as these researchers search for the truth, they have to come to terms with the fact that the answers that they crave lie in the modern dating methodologies, as they may have the ability to enhance our understanding of when and how ancient Egyptians were able to build one of the many wonders of ancient civilization. That said, we must be thankful for such ongoing debates because it helps us continue searching for the truth of our past. Aside from that, it also illustrates the dynamic and evolving nature of archaeological science, as the why of our Nubian egg and the 5,000-year-old Egyptian map that we mentioned earlier has helped us notice the complex and advanced understanding of the world that our ancient ancestors may have possessed. If these artifacts are proven right, they will establish that at least those in ancient Egypt lived in societies that were capable of a much more advanced level of technology and had a much more advanced knowledge of the world than we ever thought. As such, we must revise our perception of ancient technological and intellectual capabilities. With the map that is noted for its age and its detailed images of a continent that was believed to be lost to the world, and an ancient egg that seems to depict the future with the markings of the pyramids which are believed to be 2 millennia or so younger than it, there is every sign to show that the future of archaeology sure is exciting as we search for the truth behind these doubts and discrepancies caused by the existence of these ancient artifacts. Hopefully, these experts will be able to use these modern techniques to learn the many truths that could be revealed by these ancient relics. From the why of an ancient map that could disprove the dating of the why of an entire continent to the unearthing of an ancient egg that seemed to predict the future or change the dating of one of the most ancient and recognizable structures known to man, here is how the why of a 5,000-year-old map revealed a terrifying secret.